Irrigation season officially began this morning at 2, with headgates being opened above Barber Park and water from the Boise River filling the Reidenbach Canal. And that canal stretches about 42 miles, winding its way across the Treasure Valley, ending up at Lake Lowell west of Nampa. When it's filled, it's about a 3-day journey for the water from Barber to Lowell. But when it is first opened, it takes about a week and a half for that canal to reach capacity, enough for pressure irrigation and to begin, and when irrigators can start pulling from it. Well, yesterday we heard from the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District, which operates the Reidenbach Canal. Greg Curtis told us up until this week, the water situation was shaping up to look a lot like 1992, when the growing irrigation season was forced to end in August, 2 months before it usually does. Greg made it clear that doesn't mean this growing season will end in August. And this week, with the snow and the rain, well, that certainly will help in that regard. But that comparison did lead to this question sent in by Dan in Meridian. He saw our irrigation story yesterday and the comparison to 1992. Dan reckoned there's a lot less acreage of farmland in the Treasure Valley today than there was 30 years ago. Has anyone looked into how much more or less water is used by housing developments versus farmers? Well, Dan, your question prompted us to look for that answer today. So first, let's consider how many acres of farmland we are in, should say were and now are in the Treasure Valley, 1992 versus today. We actually couldn't get an accurate number of what's left today, since we got this data from the United States Department of Agriculture, who only does an ag census every 5 years, and doing that, they let us know how much farmland is out there in the state of Idaho. And they're due to release the next one this summer. So the latest data is from 5 years ago, 2017, but it's still a good look at what has changed. First, let's go back 30 years to 1992 and look at Ada County specifically. You can really see the expanse from this aerial view when there were nearly 233,000 acres of farmland, and the average size of a farm was 198 acres. And while that was a 14,000 acre drop from 5 years before, when you jump ahead to 2017, that decrease is much more dramatic. Through the 1990s, the Boise-Nampa metro area had a 45% growth rate, one of the fastest in the country. By 2017, Ada County had just over 112,000 acres dedicated to farming, according to the USDA, a difference from 1992 to 2017 of 120,000 acres, a loss of more than half, and the average size of those farms, just 86 acres. Then if you include Canyon County, in 1992, there were almost 624,000 acres of farmland in the Metro Treasure Valley. By 2017, that acreage dropped to 387,000, 38% fewer acres of farmland. So with fewer farms, one would think there'd be a lot less of a need for irrigation water. Okay, so you might think that, but not exactly. Now, sure, farmers have gotten more efficient with how they irrigate, and they have over the years. We spoke with Greg Curtis again today, and he told us two things. One, even the upcoming ag census data will likely be a bit outdated, since the number of acres converted from ag to residential or commercial, it's happening constantly in the Treasure Valley. With the growth that has increased even in the last 2 years, the rate is kind of hard to track. But the bigger point was his second. The water rights of what used to be farmland, well, that stays with the new subdivision, meaning the homeowners use it to water their lawns and gardens. And get this, Greg says, because we all have a tendency to overwater, those places that used to be farms that are now new neighborhoods, well, they use about the same amount of water, believe it or not. He says we can help stop that, though. We can conserve water by doing things like getting a better watering schedule, cutting our lawns longer to retain that water, not watering as much, those kind of things. Because if the demand isn't there, when we start cutting back on our water demand, well, they can keep more of that in the reservoirs, and that would be a good thing. So Dan and Meridian, to answer your question, yes, there is a lot less farmland in the Treasure Valley than there was back in 1992. But no, we don't appear to be using less water because there are now subdivisions there. But that's got us thinking about this. You want to see something really cool or really concerning, depending on your viewpoint. We showed you the aerial view of 1992. How about what Southwest Boise looked like 58 years ago? This is 1964, 667,000 acres of farmland in Ada County at that time. You can see the New York Canal there in the right lower end corner. The interstate, well, that wasn't even there yet, but that'd be to the north. It was US Route 30 at the time. And move ahead to 2019. Look at this. All that farmland from 1964, gone. Pretty amazing perspective.